Hello everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. We've got some entitled parent stories to read, so let's get right into them. Our first story is by RichardKeck. A Karen tries to steal one of my dogs when a hero saves the day. Backstory. So me and my neighbor have been arguing a lot recently about my car being on my driveway instead of in my garage. She says that it makes the neighborhood look trashy. Now, I have a large family of dogs and I decided to turn my garage into a workshop so I can make food bowls and dog houses without having to buy them at the store. Here's the story. So yesterday I was going downstairs to check on the newborn pup, Poppy, when I heard the doorbell ring. When I answered, entitled Mom, EM, was there with her kind toddler, KT. As soon as I opened the door, kind toddler happily ran inside the moment he saw the puppies. I let him go because I trusted he would just pet them and stuff. We argued a lot about the driveway thing when I lost my temper and screamed at her about the garage being a workshop for the dogs. Now, I've told her this many times before, but that was the first time I lost my cool. We stared at each other for a minute when suddenly a light bulb popped up over her head. She asked with a smug face, "May I use the restroom?" I was mad at her, but it seemed like a reasonable request. I told her where it was and she went down the hall. I went to talk to my girlfriend in the kitchen. We chatted for a while. When I went to check on the dogs, which were all either barking or uncomfortable, when I realized entitled mother has Poppy. I screamed to my girlfriend what was happening and we both ran outside to see entitled mother getting into her minivan. Kind toddler was in the car, probably happily thinking that his mommy got him a new puppy. She was trying to start up the car with her door still open. Me and my girlfriend ran as fast as we could to the minivan, but we weren't fast enough. Entitled mother already started up the car in time. She took a smug glance at us, which suddenly turned into a look of surprise. I turned around to see Grizzly, the 13-year-old senior, running out the door. Him, being a golden doodle, ran much faster than I could have ever dreamed of and jumped into the front seat right before entitled mother closed the door. For 20 seconds, all I could hear was bark, bark, bark. Entitled mother opened the door with multiple scratches on her face and kicked Grizzly in the face. When the war flashbacks came up of Grizzly as a puppy getting kicked in the face by a Karen, he bit right into entitled mother's ankle. I football tackled Grizzly so he wouldn't do any more damage while my girlfriend got Poppy. In the end, me and my girlfriend have to go to court because entitled mother claimed to an officer that Grizzly attacked her for no reason and wanted him put down. I'll make another post of what happens in court. Send your prayers. As a dog lover, I'm definitely sending out good vibes and prayers to OP. Because obviously Grizzly is a great dog that defended OP and their younger pup sibling. Have you ever had such a special connection to a pet like OP clearly does with Grizzly? If you have, tell me about them in the comments down below. Our next story is by fredzred. Entitled mother gets a glass jar to the head after abusing me my whole life. My mother is a mega Karen who treated me like crap when I was a kid. Her abuse towards me was mostly verbal with occasional outbursts of anger, but starting in my early teenage years, she gradually began to get worse. When I was 14 was when her abuse became more physical and her grip on reality seemed to shift. She started getting angry over nothing and to take it out on me and my sister. This is around the time that my sister started to turn against her because she could see the horrible person our mother really is. When I was 14 in 2004, my mom, my sister, and me moved from Australia to New Zealand. My mom was born in New Zealand and she wanted to be closer to her family there. I had brought up the idea of moving there as I was getting badly bullied at school, so I was happy to get away from all that. But I didn't know how much my mom's behavior was going to change. I found new friends and so did my sister, which inadvertently distanced us from our mother. Maybe this had something to do with her mood change? By not having as much control over us as she did before. The town we moved from was a small rural town with one high school. It was a central school with primary school and high school, and not that many kids my age to make friends with. The town we moved to was much bigger, with 2,000 plus students in the one high school. So naturally, my friend group was much bigger. And me and my sister would hang out a lot in the town, so her friends became mine as well. We were staying in a 2-bedroom cabin 20 minutes out of town on the same property as my mom's cousin. His house was separate from the cabin. Me and my sister would have sleepovers with our friends who lived in the town a lot because there wasn't that much to do when we were at home. On the days we were at home, our mom started to get moody over nothing. It started when my sister was staying at a friend's place and wasn't there. Out of nowhere, my mom got angry over nothing. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something petty like her not being able to find the remote. She got angry and started yelling at me and getting angrier when I wasn't able to fix whatever issue she was having. In foresight, she was trying to pick a fight to gain some sort of control over us. Her rage grew quickly, and before I knew it, she pushed me against a wall and then stomped into her room and slammed the door shut. I didn't know what to do or what to think. Before this point, she had only ever been verbally abusive and thrown things at me. She'd never hurt me like that before. Her sporadic outbursts of anger started to get more frequent and more aggressive, and my sister started to get in the firing line, which is when my anger and hatred towards our mom started to grow. She'd been doing this for over a year at this point. I could handle what she did to me, but not my sister. She was 11 and too young to deal with our mother's abuse. One weekend when I was at home and my sister was having a sleepover at a friend's place, I was 15 at this point, my mom started her tirade. I was on MSN talking to my friends when my mom came in and started complaining that I was catfooting around and I should be doing homework instead of being on the computer. I told her that all of my homework was done, but she didn't believe me. I just wanted to be left alone, which is what I told her, but that was the wrong thing to say. She started to get angrier and louder and began threatening me, all of which I'd heard before. The slap across the back of my head was my final straw. I got up and walked straight in front of her and said, "Stop." The look on her face was something I'd never seen before. For a split second, I saw fear in her eyes as she took a step back. Then the look of anger in her eyes came back even worse, and she started yelling again and walking towards me. I said to her in my loudest voice, "You take one step closer to me and you are going to regret it." She gave me a look that I can still remember to this day. A look of anger, hatred, and insanity. And she started to walk towards me. I grabbed the closest thing to me, which was a large glass jar, and in self-defense, hit her with full force on the side of her face. The jar smashed from the impact and there was blood on her face. She saw the look of anger and hatred on my face, and without saying another word, turned around and went into her room, closing it behind her. I cleared the glass off the carpet and went back to talking to my friends on MSN. My mother stayed in her room for the rest of the day and wouldn't even look at me for the rest of the week. She was scared of me after that. Soon after this happened, I moved back to Australia to live with my dad and wanted nothing to do with her anymore. But because of certain circumstances, I saw her a few more times after that, much to my displeasure. I'm now in a much better place in life and haven't spoken to my mother in 7 years. My mental state was rocky for many years, but I am much better now. The things she did to me didn't break me. They only made me stronger. I'm more stubborn than she is now that I'm older and can reflect back on the things she did with a clearer head. Me and my sister are really close, and I can proudly say that she is not entitled like our mother tried to make her to be. I love her to bits, and I'm happy to have her in my life. A life without toxic people that don't deserve to be in it. So for me, all throughout reading that story, there's incredibly sorrowful feelings going out. I've been privileged enough to not have to experience something as negative as this. Sure, I've had my own difficulties, but nothing quite like that, and of course I feel incredibly bad for OP. I think the one positive I'm really taking away from this was that final paragraph where they're able to reflect on it, realize they grew strong from it, realize they overcame it, and that the siblings still have a strong bond and they don't have to deal with the Karen anymore. Our next story was written by Sassy-Cheese-Cube, entitled "Dad Demands That I Don't Use My Left Hand." I come from the land of entitled parents, so I have tons of stories to share. And yes, all of them are true. When I was 15, I was sitting in the food court of a mall casually and was writing my assignment and eating some French fries. I was minding my own business, then comes entitled dad with his infant. Here's the thing. I'm ambidextrous and my right hand is my dominant hand. So I was using my right hand when entitled dad came. After a while, I get a call, so I was talking on the phone and continued writing simultaneously. I had my phone on my right hand and switched my writing hand to left. Normally people just get surprised, but that was not the case for entitled dad. You should not use your left hand. Always use your right hand. Stop using your left hand. Excuse me? Use your right hand or else I'll call security and they'll take you. Mind your business. I am older than you. You have to respect me. Where are your parents? I just started ignoring him. But I shoot you not, he asked me this. With which hand do you wipe your butt? The same hand that I should slap you with. Dude lost his stuff and started yelling in the food court while I just munched on my fries. He ended up being escorted out by security. Note, in many countries in Asia, using your left hand was considered bad as people used to wipe their butt with it, but I did not expect such behavior from a 30-year-old man. Used to wipe your butt. So I will take very clearly from this that they've graduated to bidets in Asia. Actually, I think that's pretty true. I think that's what I've heard. Our next story is by Orion Levy 2, living with a Covidiot. Disclaimer, I'm about ready to cry in anger over this, so I apologize for any mistakes in grammar and spelling. So I unfortunately am the offspring of the entitled one here, and it brings me great shame to consider him family. He's the type of person who is so set in his ways that he refuses to listen to reason. A stereotypical boomer, and because of that, my relationship with him is strained. So I had to wake him up for work since he'd broken his phone yesterday. 6 in a year. So I was his alarm. He asked me where his face mask was, which I told him where, and he began to complain about having to wear it at work and how when he goes out he doesn't wear one. Now, it's worth noting that in my state, it's mandatory to wear a mask into any establishment. I called him out on it. Big mistake, and I knew it. And he began to whine about his freedoms, which pissed me off. People are dying and being permanently affected by this, yet he refuses to act like it's a big deal. Eventually, things went south and he brought up how experts are always changing opinions, saying masks aren't 100% effective. Not wrong, but he pretends that it's not helpful. That 99% of people are like him, and he refuses to acknowledge his actions risk the lives of others. Then he tries gaslighting me about how there was a news story about a newborn who died in an ambulance since the hospital was saving beds for COVID patients, and asked me if I thought that was right, implying I wouldn't feel bad for any injustice like that. So I told him about a case where an 8-year-old caught the virus and died after her mom brought her to the park and traveled, and he just kept saying deaths were going to happen. I tried to get it through to this freaking thick-skulled idiot, but the conversation went nowhere except for circles. I made sure to bring up how childish he was acting, and how he went into active duty and combat for his country, and yet still refused to mildly inconvenience himself to protect others, innocent people. He made sure to say that only my generation thinks the way I do, like he usually does, saying that all his generation thinks like him, and it's just frustrating. I'm just so fed up being almost 40 years younger than him and still being the only adult in my household. He has no consideration for others, and I can't wait to be free from this heck. I just think notice how when you bring up the issue where him not wearing a mask opens himself and others up to spread of the virus, his response is to tangent into a discussion where, oh, this infant died because there wasn't enough space because of COVID patients. They just blatantly dodged the question. That's such a non-concern. The argument was centered around him exposing himself and others to greater chance of spread when he doesn't wear a mask. I think these kinds of people who are argumentative like this, you just will never really get anywhere with them because They love to kind of circle around and go to different topics and kind of just tangent off. And you end up kind of biting that bait a little bit, and there you go, you're roller coastering off to some other far off topic. And all of a sudden you realize 5, 10, 15 minutes later, you're completely off of any point you were trying to make. Our next story is by fredzred. Mother made her 10-year-old daughter cut her hair and threw a tantrum when it wasn't good enough. A little backstory before I begin. My mom hated me my whole life, favoring my little sister over me and mentally and physically abusing me most of my life until I left to live with my dad. I spent a lot of my young life trying to win her affection by doing the same things my sister did, like going to the pony club when I didn't really want to, until I eventually gave up and didn't care what she thought anymore. My mom is 5'8", broad-shouldered and a bit overweight, but strong from doing farm work most of her life. Needless to say, I was scared of her back then. This happened when I was 10 years old, in 2000. My mom is a huge choosing beggar and hates spending money when she didn't have to. This included going to a hairdresser. My sister was 7 at the time, so I was her next option for this mistake that she only made once. She came into my room and asked if I could cut her hair for her. I really didn't want to, and I practically begged her to not make me. But I was still in that stage of wanting her approval, so I reluctantly said yes. Big mistake. So not knowing what I was doing, I cut her hair and, big surprise, I did a horrible job. It was salvageable if she went to the hairdresser to get it fixed, but she was too cheap and stubborn to do that. I was grounded for the rest of the week, except for going to school, and was made to do all of my sister's chores with a bit extra, such as shoveling the horse poop in the paddocks into a bucket and carting them to the bin. Anyone who's ever smelled fresh horse poo will understand why this task was exceptionally bad, and any other inventive chores she could come up with. For the rest of the week, she stomped around the house saying snarky comments like, "Why can't she be like her sister? At least she would have done a better job than OP. I can't go out looking like this. If we starve, then I know whose fault it is. Bloody useless kids around here. Why don't I have enough money? Oh, I know why." Meaning it was my fault that she didn't have a job and relied on my dad's child support payments for income. It wasn't until I was 15 that I finally stood up to her and her BS, which involved a glass jar to her head. She didn't touch me again after that, and I moved in with my dad not long after that. My life is much better now that I'm not in contact with her. I'm mentally stable with no long-lasting issues from her abuse. I'm more stable than my mother, and I refuse to let her break me. My sister and I are good friends now, and she hates our poor excuse for a mother just as much as I do. So another story here by fredzred, and another just disappointing display of terrible behavior from their mother. To be completely fair, I wouldn't trust a 7 or 10-year-old with cutting my own hair. Sorry, but I just wouldn't think they would be able to do any kind of really respectable job unless it was something they were practicing. And our final story of the day is written by 3Bikes, entitled Parent on the Bus. This happened yesterday. I had to go for a hospital appointment yesterday, which is about 2 hours on 2 buses. Not currently allowed to drive. Various lovely things went wrong with me, such as a heart condition and a damaged leg from being an idiot 25 years ago. Yesterday was the cardiac clinic for the first time since the lockdown. A few stops after mine, Karen got on the bus. She had a pushchair and 3 children. The bus layout is such that I was sitting in a seat on the opposite side to the bay where pushchairs go, when not needed by a wheelchair, and it has 4 seats. So she parks the pushchair and calls her children to come sit down, followed promptly by, "You, change seats." Why? "You're stopping my kids from sitting down." "I don't mind them. I already had COVID, so they can't infect me." And boom. Karen starts screeching about me being a carrier who shouldn't be on a bus and hitting me with her fake Gucci bag that was easily blocked. The bus driver noticed the action going on and pulled up at the next stop, got out of his cab and put on his face shield to tell her to calm down or get off. Her response to this was to remove her mask, cough at him, and spit on him while continuing to try to physically assault me. The driver retreated to his cab to make a phone call while I continued to endure Karen at full flow. 4 minutes later, 4:26 by their log, a police car turned up. A quick assessment got them to offer her the chance to leave. So she coughed and spit on them instead. I've given a statement and am happy for an assault charge to be brought by the law. She managed a small graze to my cheek, so apparently actual bodily harm stands in the UK. Yeah, so in a time like this, trying to cough and spit on somebody, that's actually pretty illegal. I don't know how it works in the UK, but in the US, that's not going to be taken lightly. And also, how can you complain about somebody being a potential carrier and then go and start coughing on people as a way of, I don't know, getting back at them? I think this lady sounded crazy. But that being said, that's all the time we have for today, so if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know in the comments down below which one and why. And if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't yet, subscribe and turn notifications on. All of those things help the channel so immensely, so thank you no matter what you did. Whether it was just watching the video, liking, subscribing, whatever you do, thank you so much for supporting me right here on the Storytime channel. I hope you're all having a wonderful day, and I'll see you all next time, right here.